It's 7 p.m. on February 9th, 2026, and this is the scheduled Town of Dartmouth Planning Board meeting. Before I begin, I'd like to repeat the fact that the Planning Board voted in public meeting to continue meeting virtually in accordance with the Governor's 2025 extension of the virtual/hybrid open meeting option through June 30th, 2027. Please note that these meetings are being recorded. At this point in time, commencement and roll call. Margaret Sweet.
Here.
Lori Miller.
Here.
Helio Rosa.
Here.
Nick Psychopatis here. Dan, are we okay to proceed compared to giving it a minute or two? Or are we okay to proceed with item number one?
Yes, we could do it with the four. Nobody needs to recuse themselves for either of the public hearings, correct?
I don't believe so.
No, not me.
Okay. So we'll need to entertain a motion.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Margaret Sweet and seconded by Helio Rosa to open the public hearing tonight on February 9th, 2026. Specifically, agenda item number one under public hearing is the scenic roadway by Eversource. Eversource rep.
Mr. Chairman, first you want to make a motion or have a board member make a motion to waive the reading of the public hearing?
Dan,
Sorry about that.
Did we vote?
We
Did we
need
do
to
roll call?
vote.
We need to roll call to open the public hearing.
Yes, and then you need the motion if you want.
So, Dan, to stand corrected, we're going to entertain the motion to open the public hearing first, correct?
Yep. I think you just need to vote on that now.
Yep. So, Lori Miller,
Yes.
Helio Rosa,
Yes.
Margaret Sweet,
Yes.
Nick Psychopatis, yes. And now we'll need a motion to waive the reading.
So moved.
So moved.
Motion made by Helio Rosa, seconded by Lori Miller to waive the reading of agenda item number one, scenic roadway Eversource in regards to the public hearing. Lori Miller,
Yes.
Helio Rosa,
Yes.
Margaret Sweet,
Yes.
Nick Psychopatis, yes. Do we have somebody from Eversource at this point in time that would like to speak?
Would you like me to just give a little rundown first, Mr. Chairman? Or do you
Sure.
want to just go into it?
Sure. No.
Okay. So this is a standard procedure scenic roadway request that Eversource does yearly for their projected work in the town of Dartmouth. It's for clearing, pruning of trees as they're obtaining clearance for their electric services. A number of streets fall within our scenic roadway bylaw. So the streets here before you today are Allen's Neck Road, Bonnie's Joy Road, Gaffney Road, Horse Neck Road, Jordan Road, Potomska Road, Rockadundy Road, and Slate's Corner Road. Representative Kyle Barry from Eversource did a drive-through around town on these with Timothy Barber, the Dartmouth tree warden. Mr. Barber left the following comment on the portal. I drove the scenic road work areas with Kyle Barry. Most of the work is pruning and removing smaller growth trees under the utility lines. They are planning to be sensitive with removals along the scenic road. We also looked at a few trees that were in poor condition along these areas, which will be planned for removal during the scheduled work. So with that, if Mr. Barry would like to give his presentation.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Happy to be here tonight. And so, yeah, I'm back again this year to discuss our cyclical pruning work. This is work that's done every 4 to 5 years on any given road. So we have the roads listed through South Dartmouth. I think they were read earlier in the meeting. So we've got a number of roads, scenic roads through South Dartmouth. Our standard pruning, we're trying to remove branches 10 feet to the sides of our electric wires, 10 feet below and 15 feet above. And I am proposing some select removal of brush that's directly underneath the pruning zone as well, which I discussed with Mr. Barber. Small diameter pieces that are large growing species, fast growing species that have to grow that grow up into the wires. And our apologize, I'm getting a beep over here. And so this is done every 5 years or so to maintain a high degree of safety and service reliability for all of our customers in Dartmouth and every other town for that matter. We're pruning the branches that might grow into the wires or potentially fall into the wires and cause electrical outages. All right. We utilize ANSI A300 best management practices through all of our contractors who are regularly audited for quality work. And I guess that's it for the moment, but I'd be happy to take questions and comments.
Mr. Chairman, Tim Barber is here too, if the board, you have any questions for him as well.
Yeah, before we have any questions, Tim, with all due respect, do you want to share anything at this point in time? Do any board members have any questions?
No, I'd like to say something though. I'm glad that some of the older trees that are dead, I believe that those are the ones that you might take down. And I know on Hosnick Road near where I live, there's 1 or 2 big trees that are dead. And those are the trees that kind of frighten me if we have a windy time, heavy snow or something, because they're going to fall and go right across the street.
Yeah, absolutely. If we find those dead trees that are threatening wires and probably mutually threatening the street as well, we can take some of those down. We found a number of those on Tucker last year, and we removed some of those. There are a lot of ash trees, unfortunately, dying in town. There's an insect called the emerald ash borer that's killing all the ash trees, so that may be the situation on Horseneck. I'm not sure about the specific tree in question, but there are some ash still through town they're still affected by that beetle.
Does anybody from the public have any questions?
Mr. Chairman, Tim Barber.
Hey, Tim, how are you?
Sorry, I was on mute earlier.
That's okay. Thank you for being with us.
Same. I just kind of support what Kyle had to say, and as well as I asked him if he did see any additional trees that were in poor condition along these areas to let me know, and I can go out and take a look at them as well. Because while they're out there, they have, stated that they would look at taking care of any of those trees as well.
Great, much appreciated, Tim.
Yeah.
Board, do we have anything for Tim in particular?
No, but maybe, Tim, what I can do, there's one in particular. Maybe I'll try to get an address that it's near, and I'll call you.
Absolutely. Give me a call or send me an
Yeah.
email, and I'll take a ride out there.
Thanks, Tim.
You're welcome.
Anyone else?
Yes, Priscilla Keffer.
Hi, Priscilla.
I live on Jordan Road, and I think I have one of those dead trees. We lost about a quarter of it, I think, back in May. And then and Andy Burns helped get rid of some of the branches. But there's a big limb stuck in the middle of the tree, and I have no idea where that will land one of these days. That's broken off.
Yeah, we can absolutely take a look at that for you. If there's any broken branches that might potentially affect a power line, we want to deal with that ideally before it causes an outage. I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing the location.
It's the 3 Jordan Road. It's the first house going in on the left side.
Great. We can definitely have a look this week at that one.
Thank you.
Priscilla.
We appreciate you, Priscilla.
Hi, this is Rachel Consulting. I also live on Jordan Road. I'm one of Priscilla's neighbors, and sorry, I arrived a few minutes late to the meeting. I think, Priscilla, are you talking about the big elm tree?
Yeah, the one that has the buoy on it.
Oh, yeah, that's a maple tree. But yeah, yeah, but that's a little further up on the left-hand side. I also wanted to ask a question relating to some of the trees along Horseneck Road and Jordan Road, especially the ones along Horseneck Road that I think was it Mrs. Sweet or Margaret Sweet mentioned. I think they're oak trees, which are very slow growing. And I did also have noticed that some of those oak trees, very large, are also, one of them is deceased. I think it was marked with an X at some point last year to be removed. My concern as a scenic road, that as we start to take down some of these old mature trees, is there a replacement plan for some of these trees? Because part of what makes that stretch of road so special are these trees. And as you take them out and remove them, which is great for utilities and the safety of people, there has to be a replacement plan as well if we're going to maintain the scenic integrity of these roads.
Rachel, I greatly appreciate your concern and your comment in being with us. If Eversource or Tim Barber.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add one thing?
Sure.
Through you, could we just get Rachel's last name for the record?
Please, Rachel, could you go ahead and provide your last name?
Yes, sorry, I'm just having an mute issue. Hi, my name is Rachel Kinsolving, and my maiden name is Rachel Burns. So Rachel Burns Kinsolving. I'm on Jordan Road right now.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah.
I can speak to that a little bit. I am going to be working with Tim Barber. We've discussed it a little bit about replacing trees on Tucker specifically because we did take a number of mature trees down there last year. So this coming spring, we'll be looking for locations to plant along Tucker specifically.
Thank you, Kyle.
Hello?
Anybody further?
Yeah, I would like to say something. I'm
Your
not
name and your address, please.
my address is on Jordan Road as well, and I'm Rachel's mother. Proud to
Could
be
you
here.
just state your name just for the record?
Yep, it's Amy Burns.
Thank you.
Yep. And I am so grateful for this possibility to include us all in conversations about the trees on the roads in Dartmouth. Beyond the scenic roads, all roads everywhere, I think that there should be a focus on how to work well with trees. As we're talking about the dead trees and the trees that are problems with utility lines, it's very important, as it is being stated, that the safety and the care of the trees is being taken care of. But some of my points as well is if we can coordinate a plan, as Rachel was saying, to be able to plant trees that potentially grow under the wires or things like that in such a way that for people walking on any of the streets in Dartmouth, I've got to say that having a shaded walk under trees is so much better than a really sunny kind of parched walk. And I also feel that trees are so beneficial to our environment as well. So given some of those kind of circumstances, I appreciate being able to have a conversation like this with, Eversource and the Department of Public Works and all who are involved in caring for the trees on our roads in Dartmouth. So thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Amy.
Yep, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if Tim is still on, I believe Tim is the town's tree warden who has some jurisdiction over some of these shade trees or trees that would otherwise be over public way. Is there any guidance that Tim can provide us on when replacements are required when doing this work?
Tim, are you still with us?
I am, yes. So we work, we'll work with Eversource to replace, specific trees that are being removed. I know a lot of their work is going to be maintaining and pruning trees rather than removing and just removing some of the smaller undergrowth. under the wires, like some of the saplings and seedlings that have sprouted up and are fast growing. While there will be some trees that are removed, and like similar to Tucker Road, we'll work with, Eversource to see what we can replant after the removal of those trees.
Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
Anyone else from the public at this point in time? Anyone else from the board at this point in time? Dan?
At this time, I would recommend a motion to close the hearing, and then once we get back into regular meeting, to grant the request of Eversource in accordance with their management plan to prove the trees along the scenic roads mentioned in their application.
Great, thank you, Dan.
Sorry, can I ask? Sorry, can I ask
ahead.
one more question? This is Rachel Consolving. Sorry, I was just going to ask one more question. How does the public know which trees are going to be pruned, or is it just based on safety? And who is doing the pruning work? Again, I was 2 minutes late to the meeting, so I might have missed that.
Kyle, would you like to respond to that?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. We prune all the trees that are encroaching on the primary electric wires, which are the top wires on the pole. So anything encroaching on that zone is going to be pruned back. And we do send out notifications to homeowners along that route too. It's either mailed or emailed, depending on your preference. I think that's filed with us. And did I mention Lewis Tree has won our contract, so that's our contractor as well. I think that was a question.
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, that's good to know. And appreciate again the heads up and knowing who the contractor is.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Rachel. If there are no further questions from the public nor the board, we can entertain a motion at this point in time to close.
I have
the
my
public-
hand up, Chair.
Sorry, I did not see that. Go ahead and state your name and your address, please.
Sarah Johnston, 170 Jordan Road. Sorry for the
Sarah, is
echo,
there-
I'm on twice.
Is there any chance that you have a headset on or something that might be providing an echo?
No, but I'm twice on your screen. Should I leave one?
Ideally. Let's give her a minute, just in case she's trying to log back on.
Can I ask a question in the meantime?
Please do so. State your name and address also, just for the record.
Yes, my name is Bird Anderson, and I live at 273 Jordan Road.
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for having this meeting. I'm new to this forum, so I had a question, and I was hoping we could just take a step back for a minute, and someone could explain to me what the process is around funding of replacement trees and where that responsibility lies. It wasn't clear to me from the dialogue if it was Eversource or the town or how that gets coordinated.
Thank you for your question. And Tim, would you be willing to comment on that? Tim Barber?
Yes, so Eversource does have some fundings for a number of replacement trees, and we will work with them for specific locations. And the town doesn't have a lot of funding for trees to plant, but I did put some money in the budget last year, and again I'll put it in for this fiscal year to add some additional trees throughout town. So we do, like I said, we do have some additional funding, while Eversource also has some funding.
Bird, does that answer your question?
It does. I have a follow-up question, and that is understanding that both Eversource and the town have funds that would potentially be contributed to replacement trees. Who makes the determination of where those trees will be placed and what kind of trees they'll plant?
I can speak on my behalf of that one anyway. So, as far as Eversource is concerned, if we take down a high value tree like Tucker Road, we took down several premature trees last year and they were dying, and that was why we had to take those down. So that's the type of area where we would try to replace a tree to try to keep that character of that scenic road. And the species we would plant is just dependent on the space available. So typically, if we're in the wire zone, we want to grow a shorter growing tree. If we have a bigger space, we can do a larger tree like an oak or a maple or an elm, something like that. But in the wire zone, we always push for the shorter growing trees so that they're not growing right up back into the wires again.
And last question, I promise. And that is, once that determination gets made, is there a hearing around the planting plan, or is that something, and the timeline, or is that something that's just under the jurisdiction of your own decision-making process?
I would work with Tim Barber on that. I don't believe I've had a hearing regarding planting that I can recall.
Tim Barber. So we can work as well. We work together with Eversource, and we can work with the planning board if they would like to, for us to come back before the planning board once we've located any replanting of trees.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
You're welcome.
At this point, I do want to move over to Sarah Johnston. She's back on and her hand is up. Sarah, if you can hear me, please state your name and address.
Yeah, Sarah Johnston, 170 Jordan Road, South Dartmouth. I'm sorry I missed the beginning. Is this total tree removal or trimming?
This is primarily pruning only. I do recall going down Jordan Road. There are a few pieces of brush we would likely target for removal that are small diameter, 2 or 3 inch diameter maximum, with a lot of fast growth directly into the wires. So I saw a few pieces of small trees on Jordan we would probably target. I've heard a number of people from Jordan Road, so it sounds like a road of concern. With some,
we're an active street.
Yeah. But I'd say 95% of this effort is pruning.
And is your contractor a licensed arborist company?
Some of them are. I mean, they're licensed and insured, certainly, and they're widely used, nationally recognized in the utility industry.
And my third question is, what's the time frame for this work? I assume before the leaves come out in the spring?
Not necessarily. I don't have it actually scheduled yet, so it's. I don't know the time frame, but the amount of work in town, I think we have probably over 50 miles of roadside pruning to do this year in town, scenic and non-scenic roads overall. So there's quite a bit. We work around the calendar.
Okay. Well, given the drifting snow, I mean, right now, some of these scenic roads are barely passable by one car.
Agreed. It's been slow going the last few weeks.
Yeah. And Jordan Road's still about half snow covered. So I hope it's not too soon. And also, I'm happy you're going to send letters to property owners so we can be prepared.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. I do not see any other hands at this point in time. If there is nobody from the public and there are no further questions from the planning board, we can entertain a motion to close this public hearing as it relates to Eversource.
I move we close the public hearing on the pruning and cutting of trees for Eversource and our tree warden, and resume a regular meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Lori Miller, seconded by Margaret Sweet, to close agenda item number 1 as far as the public hearing and Eversource are concerned. Lori Miller,
Yes.
Margaret Sweet,
Yes.
Helio Rosa,
Yes.
Nick Cyclepatis, yes. At this point in time, Dan, do we need a motion to go back to our meeting? You're muted, Dan.
Sorry, I'm still coughing along. I'm trying to
I
keep
thought
the
you were
cough
lip
spell up.
syncing.
No, I believe Lori Ann Miller's motion was to also return to the meeting, so we'll be all set.
Great. So now that we are back in our meeting, we can entertain a motion. Correct, Dan?
Correct.
The motion would be to move ahead with the plan as proposed by Eversource.
Correct. Just the motion to grant request of Eversource Energy in accordance with their vegetation management plan to prune trees along scenic roadways. It's listed.
I'll make a motion with the added stipulation that Eversource continues to work with Mr. Barber.
Second.
Motion made by Helio Rosa, seconded by Lori Miller, to grant Eversource the opportunity to move forward in accordance with what they proposed. And Tim Barber, Helio Rosa,
Yes.
Lori Miller,
Yes.
Margaret Sweet,
Yes.
Nick Cyclepatis, yes. Kyle, thank you from all of us, the town and the board.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
And Tim, much appreciated
Bye-bye.
as always.
You're welcome. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Tim.
guys. Good
You're
night.
welcome. Bye.
Sorry. We'll get feedback. Okay, at this point in time, we'll need a motion to open the public hearing regarding agenda item number 2, 813 State Road.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Motion made by Helio Rosa, seconded by Lori Miller, to open the public hearing for agenda item 813 State Road. Helio Rosa,
Yes.
Lori Miller,
Yes.
Margaret Sweet,
Yes.
Nick Cyclepatis, yes. Dan, it's all yours.
As mentioned at the last meeting, we were pretty close to being able to close this hearing. An item just came up with needing some additional sewer information. They are working, they meaning the applicant is working with Tim Barber at DPW to get that done. But as of right now, I have a letter asking for a continuance. I can read that in if you would like me to, Mr. Chairman.
I think a motion to waive the letter would be fine unless the board feels differently.
Yeah, I would probably, well, I'll leave it up to the board, but I would probably want to read it in.
Go ahead and read it then.
Chairman Cyclepatis, we respectfully request a continuance from our scheduled meeting with the planning board on February 9, 2026 to the next meeting on February 23rd, 2026. And that's signed by Jamie Bissonette, PE, for Zenith Consulting. I also have in the package too, because we're coming up on the deadline for statutory limits for approving the special permit. They have agreed to an extension of March 31st, so that's in your packet. And we'll just need to get that signed in the next couple of days.
Thank you, Dan. So at this point in time, based on the proposal's request, we could entertain a motion to continue to February 23rd, 2026.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Lori Miller, seconded by Margaret Sweet to continue.
No.
Oh,
No.
sorry. Who was that?
Helio.
I moved
Helio.
it.
Seconded by Helio?
No, he moved it and I seconded it.
Sorry. Motion made by Helio, seconded by Lori to continue agenda item number 2 under public hearing, 813 State Road, to the February 23rd, 2026 meeting.
At 7 p.m.
Helio?
Sorry.
7 p.m. Helio,
Yes.
Lori Ann,
Yes.
Margaret Sweet,
Yes.
Nick Cyclepatis, yes. At this point in time, we will need a motion to close the public hearing and return to our regularly scheduled
No.
planning board meeting.
Do we need a
cool.
motion to accept the extended deadlines?
No, it just needs to be signed by the chairman.
Okay,
If anybody has any issues with it, I guess now would be the time to mention it, but it just needs to be signed by the chairman.
Just the chairman, the rest of us don't have to sign it?
Correct. I put a copy in the packet so you can see it, but it's just
Okay.
that was agreed on.
No issues with me.
If there are no further issues, we'll need a motion.
So we won't be motioning to close that meeting. We continue that one. So just be a motion to return to the regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Helio Rosa, seconded by Lori Miller to return to the scheduled planning board meeting of February 9th, 2026. Helio Rosa,
Yes.
Lori Miller,
yes.
Margaret Sweet,
Yes.
Nick Cyclepatis, yes. Brings us back to administrative items. Agenda item number 1. It is an approval not required for 802 State Road, Assessors Map 163, lots 30, 31, 32, and 35. I'll let Dan take it from here.
Yes, this is an application for an approval not required plan filed under the online permitting system under PNR 26-1. This reconfigures 4 lots, map 63, lots 30, 31, 32, and 35 on the Dartmouth Assessors maps into the 3 lots as shown. These lots are all located in the general business zoning district. They are eligible to be endorsed by the planning board under our subdivision regulations 1.101A, stating that every lot to be created has frontage on the distance required by the zoning bylaw on a public street or a street the town clerk certifies is maintained and used as a public street. So these would all have the required frontage on state road. So this plan is eligible for the board to endorse as submitted. You know, we have the Mylar in the office, so if the board does decide to endorse it, it is there and ready for signatures.
So moved.
Yep.
I have a question. Laura.
We'll see,
Laurie.
Laura.
Okay.
And this is just a question because I'm familiar with the site. It's just to educate myself, okay? And it's a question for Dan. Dan, on this plan.
Yep.
I went in today and I was wondering, none of the access points are located except the one on Reed Road. In other words, how you access these lots. And I know that they have, I don't want to call them driveways, but they have, what do you call them? I can't think.
Curb cuts.
Yes, thank you, Jan. They have curb cuts. I just wondered how come they're not on the plan? Just a question.
You could ask the applicant. I think he was here, but they're not required on an A&R plan.
No, I know they're not required. I just wondered.
Yeah, I judging by, this is just my opinion. I don't want to speak for him. It just seems like he left the layer on for the edge of pave, probably that he received from his surveyor. Normally, you wouldn't show that, but it's not required. They're kind of shown. They're just not labeled where they are.
They are kind of shown there.
Yeah, if you look real close, you can see them. There's one right where 1946 State Road highway layout is. That one's blocked off. The one where the bearing is, that's the access point. There's another one that's blocked off just west of where it says utility pole guy wire. There's some little ones that you can see if you know where you're looking along there. So they are shown, but it's not a requirement. So they could have completely left them off if they so choose.
Okay, I just
But that
wondered.
stuff will obviously be important. I would expect we'll see site plans coming into the planning board, so that'll obviously be an important things to have on our site plans.
No, I have no problem with this. I just wondered, okay, if they were with the curb cuts, because of course you're on the highway, so.
Right. Yeah. They'll have to get that coordinated with Mass Highway and with planning board's comments, and I'm sure when we submit ours, we'll get comments from the safety officer.
Oh, you just knew who they were because you're an engineer.
and I may or may not had some involvement in this in the past.
Okay.
Now he's coming clean. Now.
Thank you. Thank you, Dan.
And I will say I appreciate probably more than most the layer problem that drawings will sometimes have. So
Thank
Dan,
you.
I get it.
Well, for us people who aren't, architects or engineers, it's kind of,
So if there are no further questions, it is an A&R. We can go back to entertaining a motion.
I make a
to
motion
approve.
to approve.
I'll second.
Motion made by Margaret Sweet, seconded by Helio Rosa to approve the A&R proposed for 802 State Road. Margaret Sweet,
Yes.
Helio Rosa,
Yes.
Lori Miller,
Yes.
Nick Cyclepatis, yes. This brings us to administrative agenda item number 2, appointment and SERPED housing production plan discussion. Dan, I'm going to defer to you again.
We have representatives from SERPED here. This is, we spoke about it at various meetings over the past year. This is the draft final report. So we have representatives here from SERPED. I'm not sure who's going to take the lead. My email correspondent was with Taylor Perez. I don't know if she's going to
Hello.
begin.
Yes.
Yeah,
And I said 7:30, so that's pretty good.
I was very impressed with the timing. Truly, I was. I was like, that was really good. I showed up early just in case. Well, good evening, folks. For the record, my name is Taylor Perez. I'm the Director of Housing and Research at the Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District, or SERPED for short. We are your regional planning agency, and it's always a pleasure to work with you folks on all sorts of planning projects. And so, as Dan said, just here tonight to talk about the final iteration of your housing production plan. Right now, we're kind of in the state where the final draft is out. I can either walk through it, I can share my screen if I have permission to do that, or we can just go through a list of questions that I have and talk about next steps. But I suppose I kind of want to give you folks an opportunity if you have any immediate comments, questions, etc., about the plan from previous meetings. Feel free. I'm all ears and ready to receive.
Taylor, I think sharing your screen would be valuable for us and anyone
Absolutely.
watching.
Sure. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Great. I can
Yes.
zoom in as well.
Yes,
just
I
so
can
you-
see it.
Awesome. So here is the final draft report, 2026 Dartmouth Housing Production Plan. It is in the kind of standard format that these plans take, where we begin with an introduction about the plan. We talk about, why we plan for housing. We go through a detailed assessment of the town's needs based on their demographics, their housing stock, the market conditions, etc. We talk about any potential barriers to housing production in town. And then we outline the housing goals and strategies, which we've kind of developed extensively with the stakeholder committee, of which Margaret Sweet is a part of, and was very instrumental and helpful on. And then just a brief conclusion with timeline. So again, I can either, do a 30,000-foot drive through of the plan if it's helpful, or I can kind of walk through to some specific questions I know I had left in the text throughout. Up to you folks.
I'll share the fact that I think something a little bit more concise might be more effective to keep everybody involved, but use your judgment, and anybody
Sure.
else feel free to advise.
If that is the case, let me zoom to just fly through some of this. We'll kind of start here. There are 4 housing goals that we presented in this plan. I'll just read through them super quick. Support infrastructure upgrades and expansions to enable housing development, implement zoning changes that enable the creation of new affordable and missing middle housing choices, create new and expand existing programs to support production, preservation, and overall housing stock stability. And the last one, continue to produce SHI, subsidized housing inventory, eligible units to achieve the Commonwealth's required amount and support communities in need. Followed by 8 strategies, which again, I don't have to belabor it if you don't want to read through all of them, but they are here and they explore all sorts of different things from, again, infrastructure improvements, changes to the zoning largely, and then some kind of, longer term ones talking about expiring use restrictions for affordable housing in town and collaboration, through the friendly 40B local initiative program process. And so that's kind of the meat of the plan. Again, I'll zoom through. There's a lot of data here. Please feel free to peruse at your own time if you haven't already. But some of the conclusions about Dartmouth that are very similar to many other communities in southeastern Massachusetts in our region is that Dartmouth's population is aging, school enrollment is declining slightly. You folks have a high median income in town compared to the county, but similar to the state level. And you've had relatively steady home sales, but rising prices as we are seeing everywhere. Again, happy to kind of walk through any of those in more detail if folks have questions. And then some main barriers to development. Again, this is part of required under the regulation 760 CMR 56 for housing production plans, just so we know why we're talking about it. But largely, starting with environmental constraints, there's a ton of habitats, critical natural landscapes, et cetera, protected land in town that can limit where we want to develop housing or even be looking to develop housing. Again, classic and kind of, I think, every community, as we're seeing, just zoning regulations that are either very prohibitive, favor large lot requirements, et cetera. Maybe, we want to be thinking about where we'd want to reduce those lot requirements. Again, this is pretty common throughout the region. And then just infrastructure capacity, which I think was kind of a big topic of conversation with our stakeholder committee, that you folks do have a lot of existing infrastructure, but it's in need of upgrades. And so this actually brings me a good segue to my first question, is that I wanted to ensure that I've covered adequately here things we want to discuss about infrastructure capacity in town. And I defer to you folks if there's anything else you'd like us to note, either about, I know there was, I think, talks of negotiations around the intermunicipal agreements. We don't necessarily have to get into that now, but again, just want to make sure I've covered my bases here when talking about infrastructure. So we'll pause there.
Mr. Chair, if I can.
Please.
Taylor, good evening. I would not necessarily to the infrastructure piece, but in whether it's appropriate to discuss this now or down the road in 5-10 minutes, whatever the timeline is. When I looked through it, it was curious to me that it was almost a tale of two different stories, depending on which portion of the plan I was reading, because the way that I interpreted, there was a lot of indication of the housing need and how to go about accomplishing that. Yet at the same time, when you look through the comments that people entered, there was a lot of commentary about not needing it, not wanting it.
Yeah,
a better way. I'd love to get your take on how you interpret those two differing pieces of information on one document.
Yeah. So, I mean, let me actually scroll back up to some of the survey. Actually, I think the survey results we probably talk more about in the goals and strategies. This is kind of a common tension that I think we navigate, and I say we as in SERPA consultants working on housing, et cetera. I know I've experienced this throughout, our region, working with communities where there is the perception of the need for housing or not, and then you kind of start to tease out, potential things that, again, I think on the surface, a lot of folks are like, the reaction, the knee jerk is usually like, we don't need more, which is, again, I want to be clear here that it is never, it's never in our best interest as your regional planning agency to recommend something that wouldn't be supported at town meeting, wouldn't be supported by elected officials, wouldn't be supported by town staff, et cetera. So just want to caveat that. But like the whole point, I think, and we did this a lot, I think, through the stakeholder committee, is navigating the tensions and trying to think about what types of housing either are being, underrepresented in the need. When you think about the survey, for example, who does the survey reach? Who can take the survey? Are we potentially missing populations that might, need to express a need but can't do so here, et cetera? And so, to your point, like, we try and do our best, I think, to offer a set of strategies that we think that will be useful for the town to potentially undertake over the, the course of the 5 years, whether that is related to zoning, related to infrastructure, et cetera. But I mean, ultimately, if the town, whether it's, again, through town meeting, through getting something on the town meeting warrant, et cetera, is not of interest to the town, that's okay, I suppose. I don't know if that answers the question well. But I guess I'm just trying to say that this tension exists, I think, in almost every plan that we write. And so we just want to try and produce something where we're making a set of suggestions that we think could be useful based on conversations largely with you folks. But if at a different point in time they're not deemed to be useful, that's okay.
No, that's good. I appreciate the perspective. Thank you.
Of course. Camera on also. Hello.
Mr. Chair, I have some questions, if it's okay.
Please go ahead, Margaret.
Okay, I'm going through, Taylor, and hi, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
I'm just gonna turn the pages because I read it all and made some notes. Taylor, the survey, I thought the survey, I didn't think it started in 2024.
It was open for a while. Yeah, it was open for like quite a while. I think we looked back to when the first response was, and it was late 2024. And we really didn't get the push, I think, until we had that conversation
Right,
at the
at the
stakeholder
meeting.
committee. And we got,
Right.
I know you folks got it in the local paper, and that's where
Right.
like a large bulk of our responses came from.
Okay, I'm sorry. I just
No,
didn't think
no.
it was that.
Of course.
Okay. And I have a question for you. I went in today and I talked to Ross about it and he didn't know. But I was surprised on page 16 to see that you wrote about redlining. I haven't heard that terminology in 20 years
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
because I
We-
don't think it exists anymore.
correct. We to kind of back up here, this section, housing for opportunity. We just like to, I think it is a valuable exercise to preface, for lack of better words, why it's important to plan for housing, proactively, especially. And again, just like there are a lot of folks who either don't know about the historic inequities up to this date that have led to certain disparities in housing, whether it's homeownership rates, et cetera. So again, this is my personal and professional opinion that I think it's valuable to highlight, but we usually, again, if we don't want to have that conversation here, that's always okay, I suppose. It's just something
No, I
that
just haven't heard that term as I've been in the business a long time.
Mhm.
And I have not heard that terminology. Nobody talks about that anymore. If you
Yeah.
ask young people, like I did today,
Mhm.
they have no idea what that meant.
Mhm.
So I don't know whether that's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that they don't know what it means.
Right. It probably is, right? I guess it's a history lesson more than anything. For folks who may not be familiar with it, again, as to why. And maybe that does speak to the fact that it's important to talk about here to potentially what's the word I'm looking for? Illuminate kind of what we sometimes see on the ground.
Well, I don't think a lot of people are going to know that. And I'm curious, Taylor, where did you get your figures from, like renters and owners and?
Sure. So we can walk through some of the high level sources. And then I think, so we used to define them in the needs assessment, but it felt like a kind of heavy introduction to it. So I believe also in the appendices, if I scroll all the way down, we have some of the data sources defined here, the American Community Survey, Comprehensive Housing Affordability Strategy. And so you can look there just to kind of walk through some of the primary ones that you'll see throughout here. I mean, the primary ones, again, it's the census, U.S. Census. We look at the decennial census as the benchmark, and then the supplement with the American Community Survey 5-year estimates where we need to. HUD, U.S. HUD, Department of Housing and Urban Development, largely for those AMI figures, cost burden, they do that those calculations as well. And then a lot of these market, housing trends ones are from the Warren Group, Banker and Tradesman. So we kind of have a combined mix of those really granular home sale transaction level data that we've aggregated into some statistics like cash sales, et cetera. And then ones that are townwide just from Banker and Tradesman directly. So you'll see, in here, we talk a lot about that. And then I'm trying
Well,
to
I just had a couple of things that this is just me thinking, Taylor, okay? When in your market trends, one of the reasons that the housing, I think, the including the sale prices that went up, was
Mhm.
because the interest rate was so low.
Mhm.
And when you had 2.5%, 3% interest, people could afford to spend more
Spend
money on
more.
housing. And,
Right.
you know, I've seen it before in all my years in real estate. One house down the street sells for 500, and then somebody else puts a house on and they go, oh, that one sold in 2 days for 500. We'll make this one 5.25.
Right.
And it kind of happens. And I think one of the big reasons was the interest rates at the time were just unbelievable.
Wow.
To,
Yeah.
Today, it's 6%. And so I think that's kind of stopped that. And the other thing, we talk about flips, okay, and you
Mhm.
talk about from the Warren Group. Well, I
Mhm.
do a lot of comps, and I go into deeds a lot, and I go
Mhm.
into the Warren Group. I'm a member of the Warren Group.
Mhm.
And a lot of times when you see, and it's on page 26, when you say when something's selling for $1, that's not necessarily a flip. That could be Margaret Sweet given to Tabor Sweet the property for $1. It could be putting into a trust for $1.
Mhm.
There's, flips aren't usually sold for $1. Okay.
Right. So we've excluded those.
So you excluded all those.
Yeah. So we
So
exclude refinancing, foreclosures, and those apparent gift transactions. Yeah.
Okay, because that's important because
Mhm.
that's, let's see.
Yeah, the numbers are crazy if you don't.
Yeah, they really
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And let's see. We talk about school enrollment in
Mhm.
this. And now this is really, it's particularly problematic because with all the 40Bs we have coming into Dartmouth now, that's going to change dramatically, I think.
It may. It could.
I think it probably will. And I think, I don't know how many. Dan, what do we have? About 1,000 units looking to come into town?
For all
Everything.
housing options, not just the 40Bs.
No, but housing options, yeah.
Right. Taylor, on that, just real quick before,
Mhm.
so I don't forget later. Are there any kind of data that would indicate like school age children that would typically come into these kind of developments? Have you ever seen any reporting on any
Like to
kind of data?
actually
Like,
estimate it.
yeah, I get that question all the time, so that's why
Yeah,
I'm
I've
just
seen.
curious.
So this is perhaps not an area of expertise of mine. So kind of that's my asterisk on what I'm about to say. I've seen folks who they'll try to make estimates, on a per unit basis. There's just so many different factors that go
Right.
into it, to my understanding, that it can be very difficult to estimate. To my understanding, the discourse around this up to this point has leaned towards the fact that the impact on school enrollment is often a lot less than anticipated.
That's what I've seen as well, but then people say, "Well, point me to something," and
Yeah.
that's where you run into the hard part.
There's a couple reports that I always lose track of, like the actual name of them, that let me make a note to try and find those. I think there's one, it's from out of state, if I'm not mistaken. And then I think there's one from in state. So let me make a note to look for those.
I have a quick question. Would that number differ much from the ratio of number of enrolled students in town per dwellings in town now? Now, isn't the calculus pretty straightforward? Why would the deviation be so big? And shouldn't we as a town be able to estimate per 1,000 new units we expect the following student enrollment?
It's different housing options, so I think that's why there's some discrepancy.
Well,
Yeah, but with all due respect, we have apartments in town that are $1,200, and we have condos in town that are $599, and then we have houses that are $4 or $5 million. And we have a big range of units that people live in. Margaret, I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. Well, I was going to say, because I'm involved in something now in another state with something like a 40B. And normally when they go before the Zoning Board of Appeals, they have all these consultants that estimate what the school age children will be for that site, okay?
Sure.
And then our consultants check with that. But normally, it depends also now if you have one site, let's say Tucker Road. Are those houses 3-bedroom homes or 2-bedroom homes? And even with the apartments, are they 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms? Because
Sure.
if there's 3 bedrooms, you know you're going to have at least one child, maybe 2. Okay.
Sure.
So the consultants, when they go before the ZBA, they should have that figure for the zoning board of appeals. And if
I
you could probably get that, Nick. You could
I
get.
agree.
I have
I
a
agree.
question
I
on
just,
the food.
my brain is just saying that we as a town also then should, instead of looking at how many dwelling units we have based on how they are deeded, how many bedrooms we have in town versus enrolled students. I feel like it's something we should be able to kind of calculate on the fly and be within 10%. I'm not saying be 100% accurate, but we
Right.
should be able to be close. Sorry, Lori, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question on the public schools information in this report.
Mhm.
It says that it's based on 2023. I mean, this is now 2026. I don't understand why you couldn't get a report from the school department how many students are enrolled now or in 2025 versus 2023. I mean, that's a phone call to the school department. And
mean-
do we also have a ability, I think the school department probably knows, the number of students that are presently going to private schools?
Well,
But I
can
think
answer.
that number definitely needs to be updated, and it's easy enough to get.
Yes, we can certainly do that. That's not a problem. And then I can look from our the data source, the Department of Education, DESE. We can look there and see what they've got. My understanding, I don't know. Actually, I'll be honest. I don't know if it includes private schools or not. I will look. But I'm happy to update that number for you for sure.
But why would you go to a state or a federal information when you can just call the Dartmouth School Department and get the information?
It's just the
And
most common data source
that would be exactly right on target. They would say to you, look, we have whatever students enrolled in 2025. So you'd have the exact number versus something that the state has that's 3 years old.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Dan, if you would like to coordinate, we can get that directly from the school department.
And I also have the same question on the age trends. That's from 2023 also. That's also a question that can be answered by the town, relatively up to 25.
Sure. Again, happy to update. We always pull from the census. And a lot of this writing takes place at the time. So this was written throughout 2025. At that time, I believe I think 2024 American Community Survey estimates had just been coming out. So 2023, to my understanding, is the most up to date at that time that we were writing. But again, happy to reach out to whoever at the town will have the more current data and put it in.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good point, Laurie. I agree. I'd like to see, updates rather than 2023. And
yeah,
the other
it skews the report.
Right, it does. Also, one other point I'd like to make when people get this, you have residence A, residence B, residence C, and of course there's nice little maps in here, which is a good job, Taylor. But people need to know that a lot of the residents in residence B do not have sewer. So that is a big factor in why they have larger lots, because there's no sewer or water on a lot of these. And one of the other things is, and we mentioned it when we were in the meeting, is the aquifer. The aquifer along areas that do have water and sewer. Right now we have a 10% aquifer. And I'm speaking for myself now. I'd like to see that raised to 30%. So that's what I'd like to see. Okay. And all these zoning issues, I think a lot of it has to be really studied. We're at the planning board. As I said, in the meetings, we'd like to do a different kind of overlay for mixed use in the commercial zones, which you have in here, I believe. And school choice is another thing that we have in Dartmouth. And I don't know how many students we have. Does anybody know how many students we have with school choice? Dan?
I do not.
Okay. I just
I
wanted.
know they gave that figure at town meeting, so that's another figure that would be easy to get.
Okay, I'd like to see that in here so people know how many students from other areas are coming into the town.
So that would just be for high school.
Is it just the high school?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd still like to know that figure.
Sure.
Because once they're in for all 4 years, correct, Dan?
I know personally, so there are some that come and go, but I don't know about the percentage that stay for the 4 years.
No, but I mean, when they
They
come in.
can, yes,
Yes.
they can.
Correct.
That's
In
all
all fairness to that, Margaret, only because there's going to be another side to this story, and we will hear it, sooner or later, either here or on the street. There
Right.
are also many high school students that their families choose not to go ahead with Dartmouth High School, and they're either at Voc or they're somewhere else. So there's
Sure.
some level of academic attrition at the 8th grade level where they don't proceed to the high school. And then obviously we pick some up. I think that's valuable information for everybody, us and the parents, the town, et cetera. So Taylor, I have a question. If it's something that's going to come up later, that's fine. It has to do with the statement that you made about rising home costs. And can you share visually here and or speak on behalf of rising home costs and the fact that that is not endemic to Dartmouth? We are not trying to make Dartmouth difficult. We are not an outlier. It's statewide. It's happening. More so that the public and or anyone that references this meeting can also hear it from you. Can you share that fact?
Yeah, so right here, this is page 23 of the report. We also can show some, comp communities and neighboring communities, et cetera. The charts get kind of crazy and hard to follow. But here you can see figure 4, you have unadjusted regional home sale prices compared to Dartmouth, where again, at the county level, Dartmouth is slightly above Bristol County, but still well below median sale prices at the state level. And again, we're happy to show other comp communities in the area if you'd be interested. But yeah, certainly this is not an exclusive problem to Dartmouth. We see this in, I truly can't think of a community that I have worked with where I have not seen rising home sale prices.
Thank you. Anyone else, or can she pick up where she left off?
Well, other than the questions that I asked, I think it was a fairly thorough report, and I want to thank you.
Of course. Yeah, I'm happy to, happy to add those additional points. I've got notes here. I'll make sure I clarify some of those things, around the enrollment in the report. And then I can definitely, this kind of, I guess, does dovetail back into where I had left off, make some note about the, where water and sewer are present in town. We could have a map, I guess is what I was going to say. Sometimes we'll show sewer parcels or not. That's really at the discretion of DPW and you folks as to whether or not you think that's necessary, or if there are just like key areas in town that do or don't have access to water or sewer that you'd like us to highlight, because sometimes that information is a little hard to find publicly. So happy to, again, to chat offline about what we want to talk about there. And so I guess, again, kind of coming back to the couple questions I did have is if there was anything else of note about infrastructure capacity beyond, Margaret's comments about Residence B, for example, that you'd like me to note here. and then I have a follow-up infrastructure question once I get some answers here, or at least consensus.
I'd like to make just a quick comment regarding the utilities. In general, and just a common practice of mine is being able to answer why for reassurance of the decision that we're making. I think it's important that we share with the town a little bit more about utilities and infrastructure, because perception is reality, and we know where there is infrastructure opportunity at the moment. And some of the zoning changes, if you would, and or things that we're trying to facilitate are going to be focused along routes that have this capacity, because it's the path of least resistance at the moment. And I wouldn't want it to be perceived as, oh, well, they're favoring this sector or they're favoring that zone. So I think a little bit of information about the utilities and capacity that we can share with the public in the town is going to be important. The rest of the board, please comment on that. But I mean, we talk about this on a regular basis and we still have questions. So I imagine that most people that are not part of our planning board meetings and are looking at bylaw changes or zoning changes, they have even more questions. And I think being able to reveal to them the utility opportunity or not and justify our actions is important.
I agree.
Taylor, and I'm not by any means suggesting that we have engineered plans here, but
sure, of course,
more capacity and availability, and where compared to where there's no capacity, and and that would allow us to respond accordingly to anybody that asks, and at the same time objectively support what we are currently discussing as a board for up and coming changes.
Sure. Yeah. I'm thinking out loud here, Dan. I think you and I can work offline, perhaps a nice, like a heat map, you know what I mean? Where you have just like the basic, here's the town of Dartmouth, here are the major roads, we'll label them and whatnot. And then, some nice like squishy blobby lines, like there's more capacity here. There's some here, again, to keep it vague, but to make it clear. I'm happy to do that for you folks.
Thank you.
Of course. And I know we definitely addressed some of it in the text, but I think a nice visual will certainly drive that home. Great. And I guess kind of building off of that point, the question that I had here is, we've worked with the town in the past on certain, what's the word I'm looking for? Grant applications, for mass works, housing works, et cetera. And we're aware of some of the necessary infrastructure upgrades that the town has either successfully pursued or attempted to pursue, and maybe wasn't awarded. And maybe this is a question for DPW, unless you folks have some thoughts here. Any specific areas in town that we want to highlight? And I'm even thinking that this map that we're talking about here, about areas of more capacity versus less, could be complemented by adding some of those project, again, like vague indications of like at this intersection or at this, there's a pumping station here that we want to see upgraded. This section is nearing capacity. Things of that nature is what we'd be looking for here. And again, we don't have to necessarily talk about it online here in the moment, but that could be helpful. I think that will be helpful here in this strategy, talking about infrastructure upgrades.
I think Dartmouth has a plan in place where they want to do upgrades. And I'm not sure how far out that is. Dan, maybe you can talk about that. Is it a 10-year out that they've got plans to upgrade sewer and water?
That's all being in studies right now.
Okay, yeah.
I talked to Tim Barber, the DPW director, on a few of those things. There's a few studies going on right now, or starting, or in the process. I don't have the exact data, but depending on what kind of information you want to include, I can reach out to Tim and see what he has for specific data that could be included.
Anything else that you think is beneficial? I know here we acknowledge that kind of ongoing planning process and talk about pump station upgrades, the aeration system improvement, which I think was a grant application that we assisted you folks with a year or so ago. And then some undersized pipes, I think, came up at the stakeholder committee meeting, if I'm not mistaken. But if there's anything else, offline, just let me know and I can talk about it here.
Would that include like work they're doing on grants right now for upgrades? Is that something
Sure
that you and the board would be interested in getting information on?
I don't see why not.
Taylor, can I ask a question?
Of course.
There's someone in the chat that is asking, where does UMass Dartmouth come into play, and does it affect wastewater planning?
That is a great question. If I was an engineer, I think I would have a better answer for it. At least in the context of this plan, I can say we talked about UMass Dartmouth in a different context, looking at potential public lands or areas in town for housing production in general. Looking far down the road at future development sites, UMass Dartmouth has come up. From an actual wastewater perspective and planning perspective, that is a question I would definitely defer to DPW, to Dan, whoever might know better on how that wastewater planning looks.
There, and there was an adjunct question to that by the same resident asking about possible married student housing that at UMass Dartmouth, the married student housing has the potential for young kids, which I'm assuming she's implying would then be part of our count and education system. So
sure. I don't know that I have any sort of insight to add there, but we could definitely see if we can find any information on it.
Fair. And she's basically expressing good. I used to work in wastewater for EPA. Don't forget UMass was her final comment. So appreciate that.
Of course. Great. Let me see if there's any other questions I had throughout. And of course, if any other questions come in chat, I'm happy to pause and look through. Just walking through. The Zone 3 aquifer requirements. We addressed the lot coverages. Margaret, I know we were kind of talking about that, where it prohibits lot coverages above 10% or above 2,500 square feet, whichever is greater. We talk about here, at least in this section, how that can be potentially limiting. And then, if there's any other points you wanted us to make about that, or a suggestion to your point, if the board has any sort of consensus on a suggestion for an increase, or any additional changes, just let us know. You can put that in here. But I wanted to, I think, defer more to you folks on any additional recommendations you wanted to see here.
I don't know. I'll have to look it up. I'm sorry, somebody asked me a question at home. Yeah, we can talk about that offline. I've already stated what I think,
Sure.
30%, because
Sure.
if you look at the maps, even along Route 6, okay, you'll see that aquifer really, I think, can really hurt some of the property's potential on Route 6.
Sure.
I have to agree with Margaret. I think Zone 1 and 2 obviously are very, very important. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm under the impression that we are the only town in the state that has a Zone 3. And right now, the Zone 3 is very prohibitive. I don't want to do away with it. I want to keep it because there's things in there that are very important. But that 10% is, it makes it almost impossible for anyone to build without getting a variance. They have to go before the Board of Appeals. And I think we should examine that and increase it. And I'm not sure the exact number. I've talked about 30, but we'd have to sit down with DPW and look at it and increase it.
Sure.
Yeah.
And if,
But also, Laurie, if you read, and Dan will say yes or no, if you read the Zoning Board of Appeals regarding that 10%, they usually grant a variance for above 10%.
Yes.
They do, and just through you, Mr. Chairman. One other thing, there's a potential for a study on future well sites. That's part of why the Zone 3 is created as it is, to allow for protection of future well sites. So I did ask to be included in those discussions if and when they do begin, because obviously that'll be critical in the Zone 3 aquifer discussion.
Well, at that point, they would make it a Zone 1. If they're going to put a well in, it would automatically go to a Zone 1, correct?
Correct, and then you'd have
They
zone.
would
Then you'd
prohibit
have
any
zone.
building.
Then you'd have Zone 2 protection around those as well.
Correct.
But from what I understand, that was the reason for one of the reasons for the creation of the Zone 3 as potential for future well use as well. So
Yes.
if wells do come in, there's limited impact, negative impact to those well sites.
I don't even remember the last time we put a new well in. Been a while.
Yeah, hopefully, like I said, I asked to be included when they
Good.
do, if there's committees or whatever they do. So we'll keep an eye out for that.
And I've made it my own opinion stated. There has to be the ability for smart increases to that aquifer limit. Not the least of which can come from some sound engineering analysis and recommendations of how to increase that number smartly, make it less prescriptive, less arbitrary. 30 might be the right number. Is it 35? Is it 25? I think we'll need some sound engineering background to allow us to make those recommendations on what an appropriate increase would be.
I agree.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think the way we can approach this in the plan is if we don't want to be prescriptive at this point in time as well, we can just acknowledge an increase is something that the board is interested in seeing, acknowledge working with DPW and that, potentially, whether it's an engineering study, et cetera, looking into that. And then also acknowledging that, these lot sizes at greater percentages have gone through the ZBA and been approved. So we can keep the language vague if we don't have any concrete ideas, and just acknowledge that we'd want to work closely. By we, obviously, I mean you folks work closely with DPW and potentially an engineering consultant. Would that be good?
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, moving right along. I don't think that I'm not anticipating major feedback on this as well. But I know here in this strategy, pursue funding opportunities and programming to bolster the Community Preservation Committee and Housing Trust existing resources. Something that came up in the stakeholder committee, and I think was a pet project, for lack of better words, with the former Assistant Town Administrator, Chris Vitale, was looking at a buyout program to deed restrict homes, whether that's upon sale, et cetera. I just didn't know if there were any programs that you would like us to reference specifically. We talked about some programs out of state, to kind of get to the closest thing I think that we were talking about during these meetings, which is one in Colorado offering deed restriction upon, acquisition of a home. But if there's any other ones that you would like us to reference, we're happy to do that here. I just wanted to double check. And if not at this moment, that is okay. If any come up before the finalization of this plan, please let me know. But again, just wanted to be sure. And then I have a feeling that was my last in-text question. Oh, this was just the last one. Again, this site came up a lot during the stakeholder committee meetings. As a part of the housing production planning process and as required under the regulations, we usually create we do create an action map where we highlight potential parcels, again, that the town might be interested in undergoing, putting out an RFP for, undergoing the, friendly 40B process, et cetera. It's not a marriage commitment by any means, but it's just a way to show that we're ideating together and we're thinking about potential development sites. One of those sites that came up during the stakeholder committee meeting is the only thing I had in my notes was the former gym on Fonts Corner. And I just wanted to be super sure about the address. I'm sure I could dig, but I was like, it'll just be a lot easier if I ask here what that location or parcel ID is.
Was that a town-owned property? I don't remember that discussion, so.
No, I think we talked about including town-owned properties, and then typically when HPPs undergo the approval process at the state level, it's nice to have a private property or two, again, that we're thinking out loud here could be a potential site in the future. And I think that was one that came up.
Okay.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, no, I did. That's why I missed it.
If there is another site, please let me know. I'm happy to replace it. I'm going through.
I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah,
I want to say I want to say South Coast Health has like trucks and stuff back there, so I don't know if they own it. So I just wasn't sure what the discussion was, if there was a potential for to purchase, or if it was just something that they could look into.
Are you referring to the old health drive?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, South Coast owns the building.
That's what I thought.
There's a portion of the land of the bigger lot that's state owned because it's adjacent to the right of way.
Right.
For the 195 on ramp.
Oh, okay, so maybe we were talking about the state owned part next to it, maybe.
I think we were talking about state owned land, maybe.
I know that came up as well. We plugged that. I'm going back through my handwritten notes.
I feel like we haven't talked about that property since Kevin was here and Chris was here.
It definitely was some time ago because it's not in any of my recent notes. I'm looking. Yeah.
Yeah, a portion of that parking lot. It's actually the section closest to the on ramp. It's actually pea stone or gravel. Okay. That section is state owned. The part that's paved is South Coast.
Gotcha.
At least that's how it was.
Well, while I'm kind of perusing, I guess the question here is if that is an appropriate private property to mention as, again, could be housing one day in the future. And if it is not, if there is another one that we think would be appropriate to mention.
I don't know. I think that probably you shouldn't mention that one. That's just my own opinion because I think it is owned by, as Helio said, that's a South Coast owned property.
If there are any other, underutilized, for lack of better terms, blighted properties, those are kind of some of the things we like to think about when we're talking about the private property side of things, including that here. If you can think of, so if anything comes up, let me know that you have in mind. I'll trace back my notes. I have a feeling that they might actually be written down, or I should say typed. So let me make a note to ID the conversation about that. If there are any other details.
If I may quickly add, Taylor, didn't we discuss briefly the fact that from Lowe's all the way to the far side of Kohl's is a grossly underutilized parcel of land? Or are we not talking about those kinds of pieces?
That's not town owned.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry.
Well, if you are, I guess that to circle back to what I was kind of just going through, if there is an area in town, whether it's town owned or not, that the town would be interested in seeing more intensely used with a housing component, whether that could be accomplished through the local initiative program or otherwise, we can discuss it here.
Well, we are deeply in thought in discussing at length and in detail the concept, and it's just a concept. We're not calling it this, but we are knee deep into increased density and the opportunity for increased density along particular corridors that would not only benefit the town, but those who occupy the increased density would have the necessary services within footsteps from shopping and healthcare and public transportation. So that's something that this particular board has collaborated quite a bit over, and it seems to be common ground. And we will continue to pursue that in the upcoming months throughout the rest of this year.
That sounds good. I'm trying to think out loud if there's a different way that I'd want to say that. Because I know in the beginning of this plan, and you let me know if you think this is an appropriate representation of that desire. We have so this is the action map. It's pretty bare bones, but the idea is to show very clearly areas of development interest, specific sites. So again, these town-owned sites that came up, a couple parcels, the former police station, interest in potentially development again around UMass Dartmouth, and then zoning action areas to your point, Mr. Chair, about increasing density along Route 6 and portions of Fonts Corner and whatnot. Do you feel this is a good way to represent this? Is there anything more you would like us to show here on the map? Anything else you'd like us to say that you didn't think was representative of that in the text? And we can certainly talk about that as well in that section about site specifics.
I think this is the beginning of what we have discussed at length. There are a few other areas. We were looking at parts of town that are north and south of Route 6.
Sure.
And even further southeasterly of Route 6.
Sure.
Not to be specific right now, that have opportunities for increased density based on current zoning and subtle changes that could be made. So I'll defer to the board. I mean, I think this is the beginning of it. I mean, how does the board feel? I'm going to ask the board a question. How does the board feel that our interest in the phrase increased density, perhaps not with those words, but conceptually, be very clear in this plan that there's a notion and an interest to pursue an increased density, and where and how? Should it be more black and white? Should it be more obvious?
I don't know that increased density is exactly what we're trying to do.
I agree.
We're trying to increase the housing on certain areas of town, which we have been talking about in planning board for a long time. For instance, some of the mall places, some of the general business zones that have one level. So I don't know that you want to say increased density, because that might, I don't know, I think that might frighten people. And
I agree that it will, but
How about allowing mixed use? I don't know how to word it, but allowing a mixed use housing and retail or business
Right,
or whatever
correct.
to help increase.
Mr. Chairman, if I can through you, Taylor, can you just scroll to the section where you have like the 8 goals? Because I think
Of course.
they're kind of written into those.
Yeah,
So maybe if there's a little tweak in there, if it needs
yeah,
to be.
we did do that. That was there.
Let me scroll my back up. Just as we're talking out loud
Right.
here, on that action map, we can certainly, so the blue kind of fuzzy areas around Route 6 and otherwise are phrased as zoning action areas, area, again, if that encompasses and isn't too prescriptive about the types of things you might be looking to do in those areas, we can always just expand what we're showing on the map as areas of interest for the planning board, and you can provide me with some specific, whether you draw it on a map and give it to me, you give me an address and I approximate it, or a series of addresses, series of parcel IDs, etc. That could be one way we can show it, or we can be more specific and say, mixed use expansion, whatever is an appropriate phrasing.
What's that, Lori?
That's strategy number 2, establish a mixed-use overlay district to
Right.
provide for additional housing opportunities.
Right.
Yeah, so if we want to be explicit in reference to strategy 2, because I know that was a big topic, and obviously it's the second strategy in our plan, we can show that, potentially maybe as a different color on the map with the label mixed use expansion, mixed use zoning, something again that the board deems is appropriate to very clearly illustrate areas where either there's overlap with general zoning changes or otherwise. But I'm happy to, if I kind of bring us back down to that map, incorporate that. I was almost right on it and I just missed it. I'm happy to incorporate that into this map in whatever way you folks feel is appropriate.
Thank you, Taylor. I'll just share this. Oh, go ahead.
Could we make a comment, something about, I mean, that's all on the local, on transportation. You know, we have our bus route there, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Should we put that in there somehow to show that we're just, I mean, we're not thinking of just building, we're thinking of putting them where the existing utilities are for transportation, for sewer, for water,
Right.
where the infrastructure is there for the doctors, the retail, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know how you would do that, but to show that the thought is that we would put this along that area because the infrastructure is there for it already.
Right. Yeah, we can certainly show resources and amenities. We have a couple different GIS feature layers that include things like that, whether it's a flag bus route, presence of businesses and whatnot, et cetera. But we can workshop that and try and make a nice visual to clearly show where those amenities are.
Okay, thank you.
I'd
I
like
just
to
think that would make it more receptive.
Yes. Yeah.
I'd like to share something, but this is more of a placeholder for us as a board, as I'm thinking about what's being shared with us. We still may have to visit the phrase increased density as an overlay, because the opportunities we're describing along mixed use are only good if the owner operators of those mixed uses are interested in going up and providing units. And we still have a demand in town and a need to try and, even if we don't meet our goals, to not go into a greater deficit. And I feel like an increased density opportunity may be a defense mechanism for the town that we shouldn't take. Tonight it should be off the table because we're not discussing it. But I just want to leave a placeholder there that the concept as to why I'm bringing it up be discussed at a later meeting. Sorry, Taylor, you can proceed. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Okay, then I have another question.
Mhm.
Along with this, should we put something about affordable, in order to, right now we're at 7.81% for affordable housing, and the state wants us to be at 10. Should we somehow write something in here about zoning for affordable housing in these areas as well? I don't know how the rest of the board feels about this, and if it's something we need to put in there.
What's that?
I was gonna say,
We do have something for inclusionary zoning.
Well, I believe in those 8, wasn't one of the line items specific to a B?
Was it 8?
The previous slide that I believe had line items 1 through 8.
it is certainly one of the strategies. That's what I was going to say. There's
Okay.
a couple points here. Let me walk through so we'll start with strategy 6 here, which was a topic of conversation with the stakeholder committee, which was looking at establishing an inclusionary housing component for age restricted developments based on the provision of senior assisted elderly housing via a special permit is what it was. And then also acknowledging that I think senior residential services is a different use, but they're almost the same to my understanding. All that to say, allowing for an inclusionary component to increase affordable housing in senior developments was something we talked about. And then also, if we work our way up the strategy 5 on creating a chapter 40Y starter home zoning district, that has an affordability component. The threshold is typically higher, so potentially not SHI eligible, but just to note that there is deed restrictions as a part of that. And then when we were looking at, I think, which was the big topic here, the mixed use component, a mixed use overlay district, we talked about expanding the 40R, whether it's a new sub-district, an expansion of the existing district, and those have at least a 20% affordability component for affordable housing. So we've talked about it in a couple different ways throughout the strategies here. If there's interest in a general inclusionary zoning bylaw, that could be either not an addendum, but just we could revise this strategy 6 talking about inclusionary zoning just in this age restricted development, and then also acknowledge an inclusionary zone bylaw as something that could be addressed in the future if you would like that. But my point is there's a couple different ways we've tried to come at this. It's up to you folks how you want to see it here in the plan.
My initial reaction is is there really a benefit or perhaps a detriment when you start referencing and or including current bylaws in a plan that might be around for a while? Or I'm not sure that
I don't know that I would lean one way or the other. I suppose it's truly just up to you folks as to if you think it's an immediate priority in the next 5 years to address. But if you think it's something longer term that isn't top of the line here, that's also appropriate and okay. You can always start with some of these, again, more bite-sized approaches to inclusionary zoning, whether it's through a specific overlay or through the special permit process for certain uses. So not an answer necessarily, but
that's a good point, though. Thank you.
Something to think about.
Yeah, if you have thoughts or desired changes, particularly to the strategy 6, if the scope should be expanded, let me know. Or even if it's just a sentence or two somewhere that acknowledges that there's interest in looking at this at a town-wide level in the future, I'm happy to include that. Just let me know.
Thank you, Terrence.
Mr. Chairman, could I just add a few comments just for background on the subject? So a couple things. Obviously, this is a guideline, so we have the ability to tweak as we see fit going forward. There's different things in here we didn't mention about priorities. You know, what's a high priority, what's a medium priority, what's a low priority. So are we going to get every strategy completed in 5 years? No, but we want to make sure we're prioritizing the ones that are important. We want to make sure our main points are included in this housing production plan. So we're making sure we hit these key components that also align with the Dartmouth master plan as well. So these were some of the points in discussions as we were going through the different strategies to try to hit, the big key points. And then, based on our research, based on our public hearings, more input from the town, we can tweak them as need arises and over the next 5 years. So I just wanted to add that point.
Thank you.
I'm gonna just scroll through this plan here and make sure I am not missing anything. I'm not. Great. So this is the conclusion where we just restate everything up to this point, talk about our goals, and then make a nice clear table of your strategies, their priority, as we discussed throughout the stakeholder committee meetings, the potential timeline, and then the goals that they address. And then obviously you have your appendices. And so that is it. I suppose that's at least everything question-wise that I had for you folks. And I think we've worked through a lot of things here. This is super helpful for me. I have a bunch of notes. I would just like to give you folks an idea of the next steps from here on out. I go back and work with my colleagues. We incorporate these edits. We come back to you folks, review the edits, ensure that everyone feels good about what we've incorporated and that we've stated things appropriately and are representing the town's desires in the way that you would like. And then this is almost like we go through what I informally call a pre-adoption review, which is not to be confused with the actual pre-adoption review that is related to an unrelated statute at the state level from EOHLC. But we essentially, as SERPED, submit the final draft version of the housing production plan to the folks at EOHLC who review them and say, is there anything we're missing that would be necessary to be in conformance with the regulations? And they say yes or no, or sometimes they have very minor suggestions akin to, could you add one more data point about this? Or could you clarify this statement a little more? The edits are almost always super minor, but it's a nice stopgap to ensure that we don't go through a formal adoption process on the town end, and then EOHLC has edits, and then you folks have to, go re-adopt a plan because it's changed, etc. Again, typically the state doesn't have edits when we submit it just for their review, but it's just nice to cover those bases. So we do that on our end and facilitate that. We report back if there are any, substantial edits requested. Again, usually there are not. And then on your folks' end, it goes through a formal adoption process through both the planning board and the select board. And once you folks have voted to adopt it, the town admin essentially just submits a letter on letterhead to the state saying, hey, here's, both boards adopted it at this vote. And we present this to you for formal state approval. And from that date of submittal of the letter, should it be approved, which again, because we go through that pre-adoption review process, it should not be an issue. The lifespan of your HPP begins, and then you have 5 years from that date to do as you see fit with the plan. And that concludes the process. And obviously, if you folks have questions or interest in any sort of further technical assistance with things mentioned throughout the plan, you know where we are. But I just wanted to clearly delineate the next steps. It should be finalized by the spring is what I would estimate, depending asterisk on how long EOHLC takes to review it. That can vary, but hopefully spring, the latest.
Thank you, Taylor.
Of course. That's all I have on my end. If you folks have any other questions regarding the plan or the process or any other things you'd like me to think about, I'm happy to hear them now. Otherwise, I could stop sharing my screen and let you folks get on with your night.
Thank you for your hard work.
Of course.
Thank you, Taylor.
All right. Well, if you need anything else between now and then, please let Dan or myself know. Happy to chat further offline about things. And then otherwise, I'm sure we'll chat maybe in a couple months or so once we get this thing finalized.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Chair, could I ask one just follow-up question?
Please.
Taylor, just on the email I had sent, getting that table like we had in the previous one for existing subsidized housing, is that something that you'll be able to get?
Yep.
Okay, great.
It's in there right now. The date is a little old. I think it's January it's September 2025, I think. If you'd like me to get a more current one, if you think the SHI between now and then has changed substantially, I can request it. But otherwise, I did put it in there. It is in there.
Awesome.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, folks. Really appreciate the time and all of the thoughtful comments, edits, questions, etc. Again, please let me know if you need anything further. Otherwise, I'll see you folks in a couple months and we'll get this all wrapped up.
Thank you so much. Good night to you.
Of course. All right. Have a good night, folks.
Thank you. All right. That brings us to administrative item number 3, release of surety, Bakerville Vineyards, Assessors Map 110, lots 157, 157-1, 158, 159, and map 34, lots 1-1, 2, 2-1, 2-2, and 2-3. Dan, can you speak on behalf of this, please?
Yes, so we received a request to update the surety balance from the owners of the Bakerville Vineyards subdivision. We sent out a request to the DPW to give us a new surety balance. The existing balance, which is included in the packet, had a surety of $1,305,086.12. The surety was adjusted January 22nd, 2026 by the DPW, and the balance of that surety could be reduced to a remaining balance of $523,917.93. The surety right now is being held in a letter of credit, so that letter of credit would just be adjusted by their bank. So this would allow a total of $781,168.19 to be released. And again, leaving a balance of $523,917.93 to remain. At that point, the remaining balance is eligible for release requests further on down the road as that additional work is done. So at this time, unless the board has any questions, the motion would just be to approve the surety reduction amount as requested.
Thank you, Dan.
Dan, can 3 people vote on this? Because I can't vote on it.
Yeah, simple majority.
Okay. Since I'm in a butter, I can't. Okay.
Do we have any questions as a board? If we don't have any questions, a motion.
Motion to approve, release the surety as stated.
Do we have a second?
Sorry, I said second, I was muted.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's my fault.
The motion made by Helio Rosa to approve the release of surety for Bakerville Vineyards, administrative item number 3, seconded by Lori Ann Miller. I'm sorry,
No,
seconded by
no,
Margaret Sweet. Yep. And Helio Rosa,
Yes.
Margaret Sweet,
Yes.
Nick Cyclepatis, yes.
And just ask Lori Miller so she can say she recused herself.
Yeah,
She
I
did
refuse, I refuse. I can't, yeah.
She's in a
Great.
butter.
We are moving on to administrative item number 4, discussion of potential changes for Article 24. Anybody have any comments? If not, do we want to table this till the next meeting?
Mr. Chairman, can I just add
Please.
a quick thing on this? So this has been going kind of back and forth. We had talked about updating site plan review. We've had discussions about making some modifications. So we have site plan review, and then we have a separate site plan review rules and procedures that gets adopted from time to time by the board. So this represents that switch to the 2 separate documents, reviewed by town council, comments back and forth. So what you have before you are based on town council's comments for those 2 splits. So this was all with his markups and notes. If you look, there's one thing left that he questioned the board on, and it's under for the actual in the site plan review Article 24 revisions, and it's in section. Let me see what the head of it is. Sorry. It's 375-24-3, and then D talks about parking garages. He has a note in there about parking level shall be deemed to be a story when its ceiling is 4 feet 6 inches. That's been in the Article 24 regulations prior to any comments, notes. So if you see his comment on there, basically saying up to the board, but we should probably take it out. That's something for something different. So that's really his question for the board on that point. Other than that, it's just up to questions for the board. Any questions they have on either the regs or the bylaw changes. He meaning Brian Cruz, town council for the town of Dartmouth, is available to come to the next meeting to answer any questions the board has, any clarifications, with the hopes, if the board is so inclined to proceed with pushing to get this on the Springtown meeting warrant. So that's kind of the process here, which if that's the case, we got to start moving with public hearings and.
What's the deadline, Dan? Sorry.
We need to kind of have it by the end of March. So if we have Brian come, Attorney Cruz for the next meeting in February, we can then advertise for the last meeting in March. Assuming everything's good, we should be on pace for that schedule. Again,
Can you put in a space holder for us for a town meeting? That doesn't mean we're going to do it, but if you can get this, put in a space holder.
I have spoken with the town administrator that this is something that we're contemplating, to be aware of that it's coming in, knowing that it has already been reviewed in part by town council. It's on the schedule. So if we do hold that public hearing in March, we should be good to hold that placeholder for the warrant.
Should we put the space holder before? I mean, it can be.
There's nothing set up. There's nothing set up yet. He'll be looking for stuff, like I said, for the end of March. And
Okay.
like I said, we are on the radar for that. If
Okay, because they do have a
board wants
deadline
to-
and we don't want to miss the
Yeah.
deadline.
No, I meet with the town administrator regularly and keep them updated
Okay.
on the comings and goings of the board's plans.
Great. So when do you want to have the town council? When is it?
He could be available for the next meeting,
The
February
23rd.
23rd. Yeah.
Which I would recommend.
Are we on board with that? I am.
On board.
Yep, no problem.
So Dan, we should be good for that meeting, correct?
Yep.
Great. Moving on. Are we good with that, the discussion at this point in time?
Uh-huh.
Number 5, ongoing discussion, Dartmouth future zoning. Dan, do you have anything to add to this at the moment?
I don't at the moment, other than what we've talked about previously at the housing production plan discussion.
I mean, I think we got a lot of information tonight. I mean, I really appreciated the amount of information that's there, and I think we're very constructive, to be honest with you, in the information that we request be added. And I do think that from the perspective of education and student enrollment and having some calculus, some algorithm, some set of numbers that help us understand what's going to happen is vital. And as far as the future zoning, in my mind, it starts with the students and the schools, and then the concept of going to mixed use and sharing with everybody why it makes sense to proceed and increase the benefits of mixed use, et cetera, still leaves me with a little bit of a void that there may be a point in time when we have to talk about the phrase increased density. So I'm going to put some thought in that as to why and how I would defend it and share it with you folks in a follow-up meeting, not to be included in this winter's work or this spring's work, but I'm afraid it's something based on a little bit of a mathematical exercise that even though we perhaps have 1,200 and some odd units before us at the planning department on the whiteboard that conceptually could be built in town and or have interest in being built in town, the percentage of affordable units within each of those doesn't take 7.81 and bring it to 11.9. We're
Right.
chasing our tail. And until we all recognize that we either need a developer who wants to donate a significant amount of his money into developing a parcel of land that will be significantly out of scope based on cost of production versus what the rent roll is going to be to help us meet our numbers, without a significant increased density like situation, we are not going to capture any numbers that are going to add to that 7.1 unless I'm wrong. But in conversation with Dan, in conversation with Ross, and looking conceptually at what has happened, it's a tall order to get to 10%. And I'm not sure between the zoning that we know and the mixed use opportunities that we're trying to create that we're ever going to come close to 10. And all I'm saying is, while I'm here or in the many years to come, that the opportunity to close that gap might come as a result of something that the majority initially would not want. The phrase increased density, I get it. But it might be the only gap filler that we know as it relates specifically to that number of 7.81, we the town of Dartmouth, and 10% the state of Massachusetts. So it's plenty to discuss, and it's not a winter project by any means, but I'm going to struggle to let it go as long as there's a margin between us, the town, and the state. That's all. So sorry for that rant, but just want to make it clear that it's hard for it to leave my mind because mathematically, I don't see the gap closing.
Mr. Chairman, can I just add two quick
Sure.
points to that? On the 40B projects, it might have been a while since we've discussed this, but the benefit of the 3 apartment rental projects, all of those units, when built and occupied, will count towards the subsidized housing inventory. So that's the I would say benefit in quotation marks of the apartment units is we get full credit for all those to the housing. So that's why if you take into all those, now you're for one 40B, you're adding 288 units. Another one you're adding 300. Another one you're adding 157. So that number is going to go up really quickly if these get approved as shown. In regards to the higher density, one of the areas we're looking at is in the general business. The general business does have a component for multi-unit housing of 1 per 7,500. So there is a component built in there if we work within that constraint. So there is kind of something in there. Now, whether or not people need more than the 1 per 7,500, that's something we'll have to discuss. So there is a component if we look to changing regulations in that specific district, which encompasses a vast majority of the area we're looking at, to have that higher density opportunity. So I just want to, I know we kind of discussed these things, but it's been kind of stretched out over the many months we've been doing that. So I just want to reiterate those 2 points.
Number one, I appreciate you reiterating them, and I think they are vital for us as a board and for those that may be watching or want to learn more about what our interests are. All I'm implying, I'm just simply implying the fact that what you just shared is critical and would be the majority of the solution if we knew that the owner operators of the properties that are involved were going to exercise their option. All I'm saying, in the absence of them exercising their option over the next 5, 10, and 15 years, we may find ourselves maintaining this deficit that we're so worried about. That's all.
Correct.
I mean, hopefully I'm wrong, and ideally that would be the case. We're wrong, and we're at 11.7, and things are good. So, anything else at this point in time regarding future zoning? If not, we could move on to administrative agenda item number 6. Minutes from December 22nd, 2025, January 5th, 2026, January 6th, 2006, and I believe we will do these individually, Dan, or no?
Yeah, I think we should, just in case
So
there's any different people that want to vote on different ones.
Sure. So specific to the minutes of December 22nd, 2025, can I have a motion?
What
need a
about
motion
December
to
8th?
I'm sorry?
December 8th?
No.
Well, December 22nd.
22nd.
Because we've got the 8th here.
Yeah, we have the 8th.
I don't have the 8th.
I have it.
In the packet?
I have it.
Yeah.
That's what I have in the packet is the 8th.
I printed this from the packet. I got the 22nd, January 5th, and 26th, but
Are you saying the minute meetings didn't make it in the packet?
They did.
They did,
no.
but there's a discrepancy.
I have December 8th.
Me too, the 8th.
Ditto.
Didn't we approve that just before Christmas?
Yeah.
We had a few meetings in a row. We approved that.
So it was copied wrong into the packet is what it
Okay,
looks like.
I don't have the 22nd.
So
Okay.
the minutes that need to be motioned on at this point in time are the last minutes of 2025 were December 22nd. We need a motion to
Oh, you
accept
don't
and
have
file.
that
Well, no,
in the
they
packet.
say they're saying it's not in the packet. There was a
Not in the
copy and
packet.
paste error. So we'll just skip that one and I'll add it to the next meeting. So all we'll be voting on is the January 5th and the January 26th. Sorry about that.
Okay, are we good with that? We'll move on to January 5th, 2026.
So moved.
Do I have a
Second.
second?
Second.
Great. Motion made by Lori Miller, seconded by Helio Rosa to accept and file the minutes of the January 5th, 2026 meeting. Lori Miller,
Yes.
Helio Rosa,
Yes.
Margaret Sweet,
I don't think I was there. so I
Okay,
can't vote on it.
and Nick Cyclepatis, yes. Dan, you're lucky. I almost said Dan Giosa after Lori.
I
Okay,
wasn't
this
there
will be-
either.
This will be specific to the meeting of January 26th, 2026. We need a motion to accept and file the minutes of.
Actually, Mr. Chair, if I can,
Sure.
just one comment, page 4. And this might just be me. When we voted on accepting the minutes for the November 17th, December 8th, and December 15th, there was a few of us that abstained from certain meetings. The way it's typed out is that, for example, the meeting minutes approval for November 17th states that a roll call was approved 4-1-0. In that particular instance, I abstained. For the record, shouldn't it be listed as 4-401? Usually
Yes.
the number is the
Yes.
disapproval. So I would make I don't know if I should make a motion, but I'll make a comment to amend page 4 of the meeting minutes for January 26th. The motion to approve, the approval for the November 17th minutes should read 4-0-1. The approval for the December 8th meeting minutes should read 4-0-1. And the approval for the December 15th minutes should read 3-0-2.
Appreciate that, Helio.
Second for the motion.
So, sorry, is it a motion to approve with making those changes?
I will
Thought
make that
Helio
motion.
made that.
I will make that motion to approve on those changes.
So motion made by Helio Rosa and seconded by Lori Miller to approve the minutes of the January 26th, 2026 meeting with the amendment of the motions noted on the December 8th, 2025 meeting, the November 17th, 2025 meeting, and the December 15th, 2025 meeting. Helio Rosa,
Yes.
Lori Miller,
Yes.
Margaret Sweet,
Yes,
Nick Cyclepatis, yes. That brings us to correspondence. City of Fall River, Town of Westport, Dan.
And unless anybody's got any questions, I would just recommend to acknowledge and file.
We have a motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion made by Lori Miller, seconded by Helio Rosa to acknowledge and file the correspondence. Lori Miller,
Yes.
Helio Rosa,
Yes.
Margaret Sweet,
yes,
Nick Cyclepatis, yes. Brings us to number 8 for our information, old business, new business, incoming ZBA applications and/or legal ads. Dan, do you want to take it from there?
Sure. So there's 4 in this packet. 3 of them are for that property on State Road that we did the A&R for today. This kind of goes into some of the things we were talking about. If you look on special permit ZSP 25-5, the zoning board of appeals granted a special permit to allow for lot coverage of 34% as opposed to the 10% that's allowed. So that goes back to what Margaret had mentioned about the zoning board routinely gives variances up in the 30%. So exhibit A to go along with her thoughts on that. So there's those 3. So we should be seeing a site plan soon on that. One of the conditions was they have to come before the planning board for site plan review. The other one was for the potential Audi dealership also on Route 6. Those decisions were granted again with a condition that they had to come before site plan review. So hopefully we'll be seeing that one as well.
Thank you, Dan. Any subcommittee reports? Planners report.
A couple things just for me personally. Next week, school vacation week, so I will be on vacation next week. Ross will be in the office. If any board members have any questions, I will be here all this week. If there's anything you want to touch base on prior to that, please feel free to reach out. A couple other things I've been working on. There's a new study that was commissioned for the Dias Landing Pontiac Park project. So I've kind of taken the reins on leading that. Working on getting a architect as a consultant, and then I'll be meeting with a few of the various boards in town. In regards to the 40B, I've taken on a little bit bigger role in reviewing those. I was involved with peer review scope of works for the new Hathaway project. I've been reviewing waiver lists for the other 40Bs, so I've been kind of involved in that. Just real briefly, Mr. Chairman, that's why I asked about the school housing when we're talking about the housing production plan. Everybody, the vast majority of people that come in assume that there is some much greater inflow of students for 40Bs. So that's why I was asking if there's any specific data for there, as opposed to just taking the standard numbers. So just to give a little background of why I asked that question, because they're not going to buy, well, this is what we get on this stuff. It's like, well, they want to see if there's any supporting data that those numbers are in line when typical 40B projects come in. I haven't been able to find anything specifically that says there's any different numbers, but if there are, I want to make sure we're giving people.
I have a question on that, Dan.
Yeah.
Can we, and the school department can probably give you this information. What about the 40B on Route 6, the apartments there? The gentleman who are putting up the new
Dartmouth Woods.
Dartmouth Woods. I don't remember that name.
Yeah,
they might be able to. They should be able to say
what the population. Yeah.
5 or just 10 kids or whatever it is. I mean, obviously they're not going to tell us the location of them, but they have a bus there that picks up 10 kids.
Yeah, I can see if there's any information. I know that school district, the numbers are down for that school. And I think they're down generally across the town. So I have it in my notes as part of the housing production plan to try to see who I need to reach out to the schools to get the current numbers, so I can I'll write down to ask that question as well.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said,
I would expect
you get different, people, there's a fear with 40Bs, right? And one of the fears, traffic, drainage, increase in schools, whether it's disproportionate or not. That was just the question, if she had any experience being able to have that. So it'd be an interesting study if there was one, if there's any different ratios involved with these projects.
I honestly would expect a slight difference between properties that are categorically built like Dartmouth Woods compared to perhaps what we're looking at the starter home 40B. I mean, starter homes are often occupied by early families.
Right.
And places like Dartmouth Woods are often occupied by starting relationships, right?
Right.
So,
and you're starting to see it a lot more. You're seeing young professionals that,
right,
through finance, through whatever, just you're not seeing people getting married as young as ages.
Right.
People seeing having kids at younger ages.
Right.
So the demographics are vastly different just from one generation ago.
Sure, I would expect an objective difference in the result, but.
One other thing, we're just starting getting going on a new hazard mitigation plan. So that's something I'll be involved in the coming months as well. That's it. Other than the day-to-day work.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much. I don't have much to share. I do want to say thank you to Dan for telling us repetitively throughout our meetings, you might want to be patient. The housing production plan is coming. It's going to be here soon. It's delayed a little bit, but I think we'll have it by the end of the year. So I feel bad because I asked Dan quite a few questions often in the office, and he would turn immediately and say, you might want to wait for the housing production plan. So I appreciate your patience. And I just want to say that I really appreciate all of you these meetings are not easy on a Monday night after a full day in the office and rolling into these meetings, but I hope the town realizes that our thoughts and our concerns, and I just want to share this, it's not really a planner's report, but it is a message to the town that we are very broad spectrum, and I don't think this board has by any means left the demographic out as we're thinking about the direction that the town is going, perhaps what has happened in the past, not to happen in the future, the schools, the children. So if somebody feels, and this is me on behalf of the board, if there's someone in the community that feels as a planning board that all of our efforts are not necessarily encompassing the town as a whole, I would like to encourage them to email me and or contact me, because the last thing I would ever want to do, again, because perception is reality, is allow for one to perceive perhaps that we are fixated. And it's not that we're fixated, and I'm bringing it up for a purpose. There's a lot of land in our town that does not afford us opportunity for discussion. And it may seem like we're stuck on Route 6 or Fonts Corner or increased density or mixed use enhancements. But really what we're doing as a board is we are striving to look at areas that offer us opportunity to exercise our efforts and basically produce a desired result for you/we/the town. That's all. So I look forward to the next couple of meetings, and I look forward to town council. And on behalf of me, I hope everybody stays warm and has a wonderful couple of weeks. Next meeting is scheduled for February 23rd at 7 p.m. And as of right now, we can expect town council to be on the agenda unless Dan advises otherwise. Correct?
You got it.
Great. If there's nothing else or nobody else wants to get involved at this point in time, there is room for a magic motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Margaret Sweet, seconded by Helio Rosa to adjourn the February 9th, 2026 Dartmouth Planning Board meeting. Margaret Sweet,
Yes.
Helio Rosa,
Yes.
Lori Miller,
Yes.
Nick Psychopatis, yes. Thank you all. Thank you, Dan.